Hello everyone, it's Matt from Akuma Mods back again with our review of the Frozen Sonic Mega 8K. So Frozen was kind enough to send us a test unit basically, and yeah, we've been printing away with it for about 2.5 weeks now. I wanted to get this review out about a week ago, but I just had so many printing ideas that I wanted to do, and stuff that I wanted to print for it to really give it a nice stress test, and that's exactly what I did. So let's go over some basics of the machine, and then I'll show off some of my prints and go from there. Price range for the machine is going to be about $1,500. That's not including taxes or VATs or anything like that. So for those who are looking to buy larger printers, first off, you're going to need some space. Basically, this entire top row of my shelf unit, which is about 8 feet long. No, I'm sorry, not 8 feet long. Sorry. No, I'm right. 8 feet long. Basically, you need to have that entire area dedicated for that resin printer. Not just for the printer. That printer takes up about 49 inches when it's fully opened. But also, just the area to work, that's what you want, because that's what you're going to need, to be in all honesty. So, going back to the whole price thing, yeah, it's $1,500 without any shipping or anything, but pretty much the max that I've seen people having to pay in total is another $650 on top of that. So you're still coming in way, way below any type of competition, if you could even call it that. Because the Frozen Transform, which is basically a very similar machine to this, which is $2,600 or $2,500 depending on where you find it, and it's older technology. It's an RGB screen. I think it's only 13-inch screen too, so it is a little bit smaller build wise. The other one would be the Frozen, or I'm sorry, the Piapoli Piapoli Phenom would be the other closest one, which is again around $2,600, $2,500. So you're still coming in under budget to what those printers are, no matter what you pay for shipping for this thing. If as long as you're coming in under $2,300 total, you're still getting a good deal. And even if you come to the same price, you're still getting a good deal. And one of the reasons for that is this has got a 15-inch monochrome screen on it. So that means faster printing times. I'll get to that in a second because I know it's a hot topic. Just the sheer build volume of this thing. It's 330 by 185 by 400. Unfortunately, that 185 just slightly gets you away from printing helmets, unfortunately. I set a helmet on the build plate, and we're about 40 millimeters on each side, under a good print area. You can probably get away with 20 on each side, but 40 is just like a play it safe type area. So, unfortunately, if you guys are looking to do full helmets, you're going to have to split them in two. It's not the end of the world. The print will still come out very well as long as you got the proper supports, the proper exposure, and the proper supports. So, I think I said supports or orientation of the model. So, anyway, let's talk about printing. So I've been printing pretty vigorously with this printer for about 2 weeks now, and I've been pretty much printing exclusively with it. The biggest printer that I've had before was this Weebox Lite 215, which has a build volume of about 200 by 192 by 215, or 215, 192, 200. There we go. So that was a pretty big printer, and that takes up a good amount of space. but this thing is just insane. So if you're coming from like a small printer like your Elegoo Mars, any Cubic Mono, or even coming from like your Sonic Mighty, your Epax E10, your Creality Howlett Sky, whatever it may be, this is an insane setup comparing it to that. Now, what I mean is like comparing it to smaller printers, your starter printers basically, there's about 6 times, maybe even 7 times the build amount on the plate that you can do. So that means you can print 6 times what you could on a smaller printer. Now that sounds amazing, but you also got to take the downside of that. If you fail expensive. So just think about that before you go ahead and hit that purchase button, because you really have to take that into account. Now, comparing it to like a medium-sized printer, like most of the ones that are on the market that are really, really big, your Elegoo Saturn, Mono X, Phrozen Mighty, Epax E10, those type of printers, you get about three of those build volumes on this printer. So again, you're printing 3 times the amount of the prints, but again, if you fail very expensive, because when you fail on those are kind of expensive for most people. When you fail on that, that's just like you're losing money at that point. So you really have to be very, very careful when you're printing on this printer and make sure you got your settings right, because if you just are a click and print and you're just going to be like, oh, well, I'll up my exposure time here or I'll lower it there, you're going to have a really, really expensive, disastrous printing time. So just make sure you get your calibrations right for your resin. Anyway, with that being said, let's show off some of the prints that I've done. I've been pretty much using QTS Model Gray resin, which has a little bit of flexibility in it. I've also been using the Phrozen Aqua Gray, which I was never a big fan of. I got it with the Mighty, and I couldn't get it to print. Thankfully, this one we did get it to print, so I don't know if it was just a bad batch of resin that I got. I don't know, but yeah, it seems to be printing fine. And then we also are using their brand new Phrozen 4K ivory as well, which I absolutely love. I think it just slightly lessens some details here and there, but it still looks amazing. I love the coloring on it. So without further ado, let's get into some of the prints that I've done. So in all full disclosure, this print that I'm going to show off, I don't know what happened. If it's a machine issue, I don't think that is, because we printed something right after it and it printed perfectly fine. It could be support settings, it could be exposure settings, I don't know, but it definitely has some layer lines in it. So we printed off this mask, and I do have the helmet to go with it. This is from Nico Industries, and as you can see, there are some lines on there. I don't know exactly what happened, if it was orientation, supports, whatever it may be. I don't know, but really the part that shines on this is the inside. And that is just the amazing detail that comes out of these prints right there. So that's the quality of 8K. Now, even though this printer has a 15-inch screen and it does have 8K resolution, you got to understand that 8K or 4K or 6K, none of that type of stuff matters. It's what the microns come across. Now, this printer prints far better than any printer really that's out there, unless it's a smaller 4K printer like the Sonic Mini, or some higher end printers, or even like the Elegoo Mars 3 or the longer orange 4K. Like those print at I think 35 microns. So you got to understand, like, this prints at 43 microns. That is an insane amount of detail for a printer that size. So you're printing even better quality than smaller printers at almost 6.5 times its size. That is insane just to think about. So, anyway, let's get back to some of the prints we've done. So I've had this print on my list to do for quite some time, and I decided, hey, what's a better time to do it than now? Because I'll be honest, one thing that this printer has that's strong is printing masks. So we did the mask. Ooga booga. So this was printed in the Frozen Aqua Gray, and it just came out amazing. Not super detailed, but that's just the print itself. It's meant to just print it as is, and this is a solid print. So this weighs a good pound and a half, maybe 2 pounds. We do have some pitting from the supports that I used. I used my Weebox supports on this, and it did come off of it a little bit because this print is kind of heavy for the supports that I was using. Plus, on top of it, even though we were using stock settings, the settings were a little bit low on the exposure, so it is a little bit underexposed, but it's still printed perfectly fine. So just wanted to put that out there and let you guys know. And on top of masks and everything, I did want to print a helmet that I saw Phrozen actually do, and they sent me specifically their aqua gray to print it with, but I decided to use the ivory because I didn't have anything else that I wanted to print in ivory, and at the time that's all I had. So I asked them to send me the Black Panther mask that they printed. Now, they did send it to me, already set up, ready to go, so all I had to do was just load it on the SD card, hit print, and it went away. And this is the result of it. Now, I know it's kind of hard to see with the light glistening on there and everything, but let's see if we can get some close-up detail. Oh, there we go. So there are some markings on it. That's just from my desk and laying around here. We are going to end up painting this all black, but I mean, just look at that. That came out beautifully. Whew. Amazing quality on that. Just every little detail. And unfortunately, it's just a little bit too small. It's even smaller for my daughter. Like, she can't even get it on her head. So it's just kind of more or less a showpiece out of anything. Still very, very cool. But we are definitely going to be painting that black when we get around to it. Now, with me talking about QTS resin, you know, for you guys that are getting this machine, I do highly suggest getting into the 5 kilogram resin market because, yeah, the first time I tried QTS resin, I poured their 500 milliliter bottle of resin into that vat, and it barely covered the bottom of the vat. Yeah. That vat holds 1.65 liters of resin. Now, you can probably get away with a little bit more once the plate goes under, but yeah, that's a lot of resin. So for anybody that's looking to get into this, you're going to need some heavier bottles of resin because those kilogram resins, you know, they'll get you by, but 5 kilograms is really where it's going to be at when it comes to printing on this machine. So I'm just letting you know that right now. So with that being said, they some buddies of mine who resell the QTS resin decided to give me that bottle of resin to test out. And then along with that, I asked them for a print that they had done when I was at Murph and I was talking to them. They had the Frozen Sonic Mighty, and they were showing off some cool prints that were like a cube printed in a cube. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I'd never seen anybody resin print anything like that. And so I decided, hey, you know, can I grab that print for you? And he's like, sure. You know what, how about I customize it for you and I put your name on it? And I said, sure. So we went ahead and we tested it out. And there it is. There's my logo. Akuma Mods. And it kind of runs around. Now what's cool about this is it's model gray, so it does have a little bit of flex in it. And yes, this prints just like this on the build plate. Look, I printed it directly on the build plate, just like this. And that's how it came out. So I did have another one around here, but I think my little one stole it. So that's unfortunate. So I have some other prints over here I can't really show off because the camera's just not going to pick up any really detail. I mean, I can show you a print, but it's not even cured. I still have to remove some of the supports. It is washed, but this is from Loot Studios, and this is their Enemy Pack. It's actually their Enemy Pack 1, 2, 3. Their entire package, pre-supported and everything. And yeah, I printed them all on the build plate. So that was really, really nice that I can just do that in one fell swoop. I had never printed miniatures before. That was my first time doing it. I think they're a little bit under exposed, or under cured. Sorry, and so we'll have to try that again because I think it's lost a little bit of detail, but we'll give it a go again. Another one that I did while I had the QTS resin loaded up, which was probably a bad idea because, like I said, it's got a little bit of flex in it, was to do a lithophane. So I reached out to my buddy, Matt Germain. You guys may or may not have seen him on the groups. He does amazing lithophanes, specifically colored lithophanes. And not where it's like colored. It actually has a picture attached to the back of it, and the color shines through, and it is just jaw-dropping to see that. So so I reached out to him. I sent him a picture that I wanted to do as a lithophane, and we basically sized it up. Unfortunately, I couldn't utilize the entire build volume because it would have stretched the picture and it would have looked funny. And so I just was like, all right, let's at least do stretching it to the full build volume, or at least close to it. So I think I gave him the specs of like 380 millimeters because this maxes out at 400. And I basically set it to print on stock settings, and it took about 64 hours to do. Now again, this is stock settings, so this is super, super slow, meant to salvage everything and not have any problems or nothing like that. So, but it came out pretty well. There is a slice in the print because I was adding resin at the time, and yeah, it kind of delaminated a little bit, but I guess the light source is so good that it molded together and it still started printing. So that's really cool that it's still printed, because I would have been really, really mad to lose the 20 hours or 28 hours, I think it was, that it was at when I added the resin. But I'm going to try and get this in the light here that I have on top and show you guys off, and I'm sure most of you guys that are watching this will know right away who it is. But here it is. Let's see if we can get this shining. There we go. You guys know who that is? He is Vigo! Vigo the Carpathian. So yes, even though this is gray resin, the settings are kind of nice. Unfortunately, I don't have a big enough light source for something this big. And again, like I said, it's got some flex in it, so I can bend it, I can move it any way I want. That's why some of you guys may have seen me posted pictures of it still on a build plate, and it was warping, and you're like, yeah, it's warping. Well, that's because it's flexible. So yeah, it can do that. This is cured. This is cured. So yeah, that was probably not the best choice to use that type of resin for that print, but it is what it is. So going back to the whole 64-hour print and the stock settings, I know that's a hot topic with a lot of people. So I wanted to put that out there that it's stock settings. So with that, this Loot Studio miniatures things that I did, one of these is on stock settings, one of these is on what I like to call speed settings. Now, I did a test to see how fast I can print on this new printer. And so the stock settings are basically like 4.5 seconds, and it's like 45 millimeters a second for the raising of the build plate and lowering, with a 16-second off delay, light off delay. So that means it raises up 16 seconds, it waits, then it comes back down 16 seconds, it waits, and then the light goes on. So that allows enough resin to flow back on and just get you an amazing print. But you're also costing a lot of time. So one of these printed at 13 and a half hours, and the other one printed at 8.5 hours. Now, I basically took the light off delay, I put it down to 2. I probably could have set it to 0. And I took the 45 millimeters a second and bumped it up to 100 millimeters a second. And pretty much the results are very similar, but you can definitely tell the 100 millimeter a second is under cured or underexposed. You could definitely tell that because the models just kind of break away a little bit. I did end up breaking a lot of the pieces off of that when I was removing some of the supports, and there's still a lot of supports I got to remove from them. But you could basically tell, like, that's why you need to make sure your resin is tuned, because if you change anything, even speed settings, it's going to change the entire time of printing. So yeah, that's basically what happens. So we're going to go back in and fine tune some things and get it printing, and I'll probably end up releasing a profile that has some speed settings for at least the stock gray resin and the stock ivory resins, and then you guys can tweak from there. But that'll probably be another week before I do that, because I still have a lot of testing to do on this printer. But so far it's been printing very well. I've had one issue with the machine, and I did bring it to Phrozen's attention, and they were quick to respond and quick to fix it, and they said it was an issue with the production models. So hopefully you guys are having the fixed models. And that was basically the vat. The screws that hold down the vat were too long. So what was happening is there was too much play. So I could basically like move the vat left and right when there was no resin in it, obviously. Or I can tip it left and right, or up and down. And so that had me a little bit worried when it was peeling away and stuff like that. So Phrozen quickly sent out some new holders or screws, and basically I just put them in there. These are the old ones, and basically I was able to fix it for the time being, just adding a little washer on there, so we get a little less clearance on the screw there, and that's basically where we went from there. So much better, and like I said, very quick to respond. But really, that's about the only major issue that I saw with the machine so far. I know a lot of people were asking about ventilation on the printer. There is no active ventilation. It is a very quiet machine, and you can add ventilation to it if you want to. Phrozen said there's handles on each side of the printer, and you can actually remove one of those handles or both those handles and put a custom ventilation system in there if you really wanted to. But I'll be honest, it prints, less than 5 feet away from me, and I don't really have a problem with it. So, but then again, I use higher quality resins and low odor resins most of the time. If I'm using a specific type of resin that I know is going to be smelly, I usually, right in the corner here, you guys can't see it because it's behind there, there's a tower fan that's usually always going, and it's got an active carbon filtration system on it. So I always use that. I usually have it on a low setting, but if I'm using powerful resins like a rubber resin, I'm going to put it on high, because it definitely does get smelly in here. So yeah, that's basically all I really have to say about it. I don't think I got anything else that was an issue or print wise, but we still got a lot of playing around to do just to get those times down. But again, really, this is probably the best bang for your buck. Now, I know I say that about a lot of printers, and really that's the truth when I say it, is what you get out of this printer, you can't beat it for the price, at least not at this moment. The closest competitors, like I said, are the Phrozen Transform and the Peopoli Phenom, or Peopoli Phenom. however you want to say it. Those are the two closest machines. You can even throw in the Udemy, what is it, Falcon X or whatever. But again, that's basically a Peopoly Phenom. It's a similar machine. They're all based off of the same type of machine. Um, but again, they're all $2,500 to $3,000, and I don't even know if that includes shipping, to be honest. So again, as long as you're under, in my opinion, $2,300 in total for this printer, you're getting your money's worth out of it. One downside I'd say to this entire printing experience is there's nothing out there that will help you to cure your models or wash your models. Now, I do have the Anycubic Wash and Cure Plus, and that does kind of work a little bit, but it's still small. If you're doing something that is a full build plate, yeah, you're going to have a bad day trying to get that cleaned up and get it cured. You're just going to have to use good old sun, and that's kind of how it is. Take, for example, this lithophane. This was 380 millimeters. I had to dip one side into the wash, then turn it around and dip the other side into the wash. Do it 6 and 6, and then I had to rig up the top so I can cure that. And I did it for 6 minutes on one side, 6 minutes for the other. Flip it around, do 3 on one, 3 on the other. And that's basically how I did it. So it was fun, let me tell you. So if you're trying to do a 400 millimeter build volume, you're going to have a fun time washing and curing that, let me just tell you. So just be aware of that. Some of the issues that people were talking about, like I said, the whole time framing thing, that's just because it's on stock settings. You don't have to utilize those stock settings. You can always adjust them and print faster, much like I did. I knocked the print down from 13 and a half hours to 8.5 hours. So that's a huge difference. So I know that's still not great to some, but you also got to think you're printing 3 times as much as most medium-sized printers are in, maybe double the time. So you really got to weigh it. So in my opinion, if you're going to be printing on this printer, make sure you're utilizing the entire full build volume, no matter what you're printing with. Another one was the build plate is perforated. Me, personally, I hate perforated build volumes. I like printing flat on the plate. That's what I like to do. But, I understand why it's needed, because there's so much pressure that's going down on that printer that they don't want the screen to be cracked, and they want to make sure that your prints come out very good. And that's one of the reasons why they have the slow, raising and lowering times on the sheet 2 box profile, which is why it takes such an insane amount of time for it to print on the stock profile. Again, you don't have to utilize that. That is just best practices to make sure that your printer stays in good hands while printing, and you're not basically maturing the failure rate, if that makes any sense. Making it go faster. Because you really don't want to be replacing an almost $400 screen. Yes, that's how much those screens are going to cost. So just be mindful on what you're doing. So going back to the perforated build volume, or build plate. Dried resin. I know some people have asked about that, and a lot of people have said, well, I haven't had a problem with that. I have. It's not a problem, but I have had dried resin. Case in point, this print that's going right now has some QTS dried resin in it. I'm just going to let it roll. If it gets in the print, it gets in the print. It's not the end of the world. You can always get a wire brush and stick it down there. You can always clean your build plate after every single time. I'm not going to be that thorough, to be honest. As long as it's working, it's fine. It's not as bad as some perforated build plates like this one that I've dealt with that are super thin, where the supports and everything just stick to it, and it's like you're trying to peel it up. Whereas this, it slides off very easily because you have that thick build plate. Another issue that I had seen that people were asking about is the pooling on the top of the build plate. That does happen. So when you guys are finished with prints, make sure you use a squeegee or whatever to get all that excess resin off. Because if you don't do that and you just go ahead and take the build plate off, you're just going to have a mess all in the front of this machine. All over this. This entire machine is just going to be covered in stuff. Or anything that's in front of it. It's just going to be a disaster. So it's just better to do that. Let it sit for about a minute so it can drain through the holes. And then take it off of the build plate. There still will be a little bit of drippage because there's still going to be some in that hole that's kind of like suctioned in there a little bit. But for the most part, most of the resin is going to be gone. So that's pretty much it, guys. I will leave links to all the stuff that I printed if I have them. And if you guys are looking to purchase this machine, I do have an affiliate link from Phrozen. So if you purchase one, please purchase it through there. That gives back to the channel, and we can do some more content and provide cool stuff. That's pretty much it. If you guys like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. The more people, the more merrier. We could actually grow the channel and do some really cool stuff with it. And that's pretty much all I got, guys. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and leave them down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Until next time, happy printing.